Shabbat Shalom. Our Parsha this Shabbat is Vayera. Very famous. A lot happens. It actually includes the text that we chant on High Holy Days. I always say that our Torah tracks our lives every Shabbat, week after week, month after month, year after year. With everything that is going on in our world right now, this Shabbos, it's no different. We see the destruction in our Parsha of Sodom and Gomorrah, as well as the binding of Isaac when Abraham is tested to sacrifice his beloved son. We see negotiations between Abraham and God to not destroy the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. We see warnings to Lot's family to get out of the area before it's destroyed. Sound a little familiar? And to not look back. Yet his wife does, and what happens? She's turned into a pillar of salt. We see Abraham's wife, Sarah, posing as his sister for the second time to try to navigate living in hostile times. We hear of how she was told that she would give birth at an incredibly late age. She kind of laughs. There's a lot of commentary on it. And of how Hagar and Ishmael, her maidservant, and her son by Abraham are sent away, being spared only to become a nation with which we are at war. After the destruction in Sodom and Gomorrah, out of desperation, Lot's daughters trick and get impregnated by their father, going on to create the nations of Moab and Ammon. Seeds are sown, which found nations that will war against one another. And yet, remarkably in this Parsha, there are angels everywhere. Angels, the divine presence everywhere. Abraham gets 3 visitors who tell of Sarah's upcoming birth, which seemed so unlikely to them. They were divinely driven, unbeknownst to Abraham, to help guide him and Sarah. We hear of how Abraham extends extraordinary hospitality to them, becoming an example to us all, and the greatest person in the entire Torah that leads us towards that feeling of hospitality and generosity to strangers. We hear of how Hagar and Ishmael are saved. It is an angel that comes to find them at their darkest moment and save them, as well as with Isaac in those final moments of sacrifice. All of this, the result of angelic divine presence and guidance. There's this constant give and take, or this tension between prophecy, angelic intervention, God's frustration at our own negative human temptations, and our human poor choices, juxtaposed against the backdrop of destruction, and so too birth, renewal, redemption, and resurrection. Even as it is stated in our Parsha, the next morning, Abraham went to the place where he had stood Asher Amad before God, returning to the place where he had bargained with God. And from that vantage point, Abraham looked towards Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding areas, and he saw the smoke rising from the land. He bore witness to the destruction. This is the reality that we are living thousands of years later, bearing witness to the destruction. We sing the Shema as we are commanded to bear witness to the one true God, and yet we must also bear witness to the destruction that is prevalent amidst humanity. Destruction that we have brought on by our own actions. All the while, praying, hoping for intervention. The kind of intervention that we saw at the binding of Isaac, or at the time of Hagar and Ishmael's great peril. The sacrifice, the terror, cities going up in smoke and ruin, lives lost, juxtaposed against visions of gracious hospitality toward strangers who in fact turn out to be angels of divine prophecy. This is something that we so desperately need right now. Where are the angels? You can say. You can ask, where are the angels when we need them? Don't we need them now? And some would say, even they'd go far enough to say, where is God in all this? God is always there. We are the ones that threaten humanity and continually bring about our own chaos and ultimate destruction and demise. Just like Isaac and Ishmael go on to make two great nations, and Lot's daughters beget the nations of Moab and Ammon, the rivalry and discord of generations ago remains today, thousands and thousands and thousands of years later, the same. What is it going to take for us to learn? When will we learn? There is so much turmoil in our streets, our communities, and around the globe. There is so much dissension. It's as if there was a global Band-Aid placed upon us all that has now been ripped off. But the wound that it covered had never actually been fully cleaned or able to heal. It festered underneath that Band-Aid. The best that we can do is pray for this horrific chaos to end before it gets completely out of control, and yes, we are all destroyed once again. It can happen. Pray that peace will come and that some kind of rebirth will happen that will put an end to this dissension finally, so we can all be brothers and sisters and cousins sharing this earth in peace. However, old habits, they're hard to break, and these habits have lasted for centuries. The evil that pervades our world is nothing new. The wound that has been festering below the surface for decades is finally brought out into the light. You cannot fix what you cannot see. Maybe this is the horrific point to all of this heartache and this loss and this madness. Maybe we need to just rip the Band-Aid off so that we can see how truly infected the wound is. Where it's hiding, where it's lurking, really truly see it so that we can really truly cleanse it, get rid of it, destroy it, and ultimately heal it. People are revealing themselves now globally. We can now face the evil straight in the eye, head on, that has been hiding and lurking, but never, ever really gone. We can no longer be naive, and you know what? Maybe that too is good. Maybe in order to mature into the nations and humanity that God really intended, we have to fight it out, like Cain and Abel and Esau and Jacob, to come to some different kind of world order that's more elevated and actually filled with the promise that we were promised. We can only pray and continue to do this together. Pray and continue to do this together. Prayer is restorative and healing. We know this, and we have experienced this firsthand with our loved ones in our community and with people who are sitting here today. This is our task. We may not be over there actually fighting the war, but we are fighting the war. Make no mistake, right here. We know this, and we have experienced this throughout the centuries. It's all in our Torah. So we need to know that there are things that we can do that can make a difference. One thing is the study of Torah, or the scanning of Kabbalistic texts like volume 15 of the Zohar, or the works of the Ari. In Deuteronomy, God flatly declares, "I wound and I heal." It is written that it would have been logical to conclude that human medicine and healing are actually contravening divine will. However, Jewish tradition does not accept this. And Tractate Shabbat 82b argues that humanity's attempts at healing are analogous to the human cultivation of the earth. Midrash Shmuel states a necessary activity of human life is to thrive. So how do we do this? How do we cultivate our earth that we're destroying in so many different ways? How do we thrive amidst chaos and destruction and evil? How do we continue to go on and, dare I even say, enjoy life while this evil is eating away at our collective soul? This is a parsha of sacrifice, yet it is also a parsha amidst the destruction of angelic guidance, of positivity and light and promise. We must honor the sacrifices that are being made now on our behalf, which require that we actually do live fully, so that those sacrifices count and that those lives lost, those souls will receive blessing and merit on high. In addition, we must study as we do on Shabbat and as we do together on Zoom. According to Rabbi Joshua ben Levi, the very act of studying Torah serves as a treatment for illness. Rabbi Judah declares sacred study is a drug for the entire body. So prayer, study, the very act of going on, or of moving forward, of continuing to live amidst the madness matters. Everything that we are doing right now matters. We can affect change. We can make a difference by coming together and manifesting energy. And believe it or not, by calling upon the angels to guide us, as in the past. And as is so prevalent in our parsha, calling, invoking, begging them to intervene. Angels, or actually in a few cases demons, could be invoked to effect recovery. This is in the Sanhedrin, and this is also in the Shabbat tractates. Tractate Shabbat lists actually names of various healing angels that can be called upon, and also demons, presumably the sources of a given affliction, could be summoned in order that they might be adjured, bound, and or exorcised. We call upon the angels to be with us now at this critical juncture in our Judaic history, the Shekhinah, the divine feminine aspect of God, to rewrite the narrative and bring on peace, not just for us, but for all humanity. We can show up. We cannot be passive. Yet we can be kind and compassionate and not vengeful, but yet we can remain vigilant and aware. We can give where we can. We can continue to band together, not just as Jews, but as a global community to eradicate evil while not turning a blind eye to anyone's pain. Because at the end of the day, we are one human family. We are a faith that requires action. So let us all do this and more. Let us take this wound that has been revealed, cleanse it, and hopefully, truly heal it. Let us be worthy, and let us invoke God's grace to shine down upon all of us. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Shabbat Shalom.